This episode is sponsored by Free Market Kids.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Orange Hatter. Today, you're listening to part 3 of my conversation with Marina.
And with time, how it would become more and more valuable. And so that's a lesson that isn't a piece of what is Bitcoin, why Bitcoin is valuable, that does not resonate in the news. Like they always tell you about all the bad stuff, like when it drops to 2K, right? Or something like that. But they don't tell you about the fact that it is anti-inflationary and that there is no possibility to print more, which is the difference with other cryptocurrencies. You can print more. And I think that's the other part of why I've chosen to focus on Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely a very important concept to make our hopefully pre-coiner women become aware is that the limited supply, like people always want the unique thing, right? If there's like a mass produced some kind of gadget, people would buy it, but then they would realize that a million other people will have it. So you can't really charge a whole lot of price for it because it's not unique. You know, people tend to want unique things, but if an artist made one artifact and it's the only one that will ever be made, suddenly the value goes up. If people, like it, they bid up the price because there's only one. It's a limited supply. Limited supply raises value. And so if there's only ever going to be 21 million, everybody in the world couldn't own a whole Bitcoin because there's only ever going to be 21 million. And right there, because human beings naturally understand that scarcity brings up the value, that's such an important fact.
Well, I mean, so this is the interesting thing about human beings naturally. We are not natural. We are Homer Simpson in our brains sometimes. There's something called behavioral economics, and it was a really interesting focus in the world because economics was matched with psychology. And for the first time, a psychologist won the Nobel laureate in economics. And the whole proof was that our system kind of behaves in two ways, right? That there's this fast version of how we make decisions that we call gut decisions, and then the slow process of making a decision and how our brains function. And so in the fight or flight, you have to make very quick decisions. And so how sometimes our brain, like we should say that we use money in a certain way and we should understand scarcity, but until sometimes we're in the situation, we don't act. And I think let's act, let's understand it, let's do it, let's play with it, download a wallet, see how it goes, go buy a hamburger, go buy a beer with it, exchange it with a friend. And like I downloaded it for my daughters and they have a little bit, I gave them $50 and I just say, okay, what's the price of your Bitcoin today? What's the price of your, like, how's it going? And it goes up and it goes down. But I think mentally they're starting to understand what it means and how does it work. And they see me go to, buy fish or buy a hamburger or, how their money is going up in value, different things like that, that only until you use it do you start to not be afraid, understand that, okay, right now it's at this price, so I should buy more. Those sort of things, right? But obviously the other angle that's really important is understanding how to safely guard your money and make sure that it's not your Bitcoin if you're not paying attention. Like, yeah, maybe you buy it in an exchange, but also potentially keep it for yourself, make sure it's safe, make sure you understand what you're doing, because if you lose it, you really lose it, right? There's no 1-800 number to call to say, where's my Bitcoin? So you really have to understand your ownership of it. And that's why we have to play, learn, download the wallet and understand it first, and then when it goes down, you can buy more if you'll have learned that.
Yeah, for sure. Just take baby steps.
Yeah.
And the first baby step can be as simple as downloading a wallet. And there are lots of resources to guide you.
There's a lady who did a talk about Bitcoin in Venezuela. And she's one of the ladies that I interviewed. And she says she spoke with like 10 women and they were sitting there and she helped them, talk about it and explain it to them. And they're like, and one of the ladies go, oh, okay, great. I'm going to go give this to my husband and ask him to download a wallet. And she goes, no, lady, no, don't tell your husband anything. Download your wallet and tell him it's an app to track your period. Like teach. And I think it does teach financial independence. because I am married to a PhD in finance. So obviously, like, I was like, okay, I have you do. And for the first time in my life, I'm paying attention to things that are related to finance, that are related to the Fed. Again, I was studying public policy, not monetary policy, public policy. But it's the first time that I'm paying attention to the things that really matter for women to have power, to feel confident with their decisions, with savings, with investing, my decision to invest, or or save a little bit here. It really was a huge empowerment that I did not do before understanding or getting into Bitcoin. I just didn't. It was always a decision that somebody else made.
Yeah, and talking about women empowerment, you had shared with me some stories at our previous conversation at Bitcoin Park about women who are in compromised situations, whether it's domestic abuse or something else, prostitution or something. Can you talk a little bit more about how Bitcoin could help empower those women?
I think financial education is so far behind in every country. We just don't teach that. We don't really understand it. And culturally speaking, so the podcast that really hit me and I really, really loved, Laura Shin did a story about the lady who ran a developer team that did web development in Afghanistan. And so she would pay them, but she couldn't because they had to have a male, whether it was their brother or their father, co-sign with them at the bank. And so she couldn't pay the ladies because a lot of them didn't have access to a bank account, right? And so having your own Bitcoin, having your own wallet, having your own money, and being able to pay or do things with that really, really made a difference in their lives. And in fact, I think her sister paid her master's with Bitcoin because she had been saving in Bitcoin. She had been doing things that empowered her in a country and in a system that was very male dominated. So I think that understanding money and being able to have power over your wallet, over your savings, over what you do with that, even if it's not like culturally like a situation like in Afghanistan, maybe it's just like me where I had just delegated that decision in general. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I switched my mindset completely with understanding, okay, now I have to think about this. I want to invest differently. I want to think about my future differently. So there's different levels of how it can empower women, whether it's precarious because of abuse or precarious because you live in a country that's abusing you. I think that it's the same idea, that if you have an understanding of your ability to save and be safe and transact for yourself instead of depending on somebody else who may or may not want to manage the money the way that you need it, I think it's a complete shift in the world, thankfully.
Yeah, and especially when you talk about empowerment, we need to also talk about the fact that empowerment comes from you taking charge, right? So you have to make that decision to educate yourself. And if you have access to the internet immediately, the whole world opens up to you with knowledge, right? So there are so many resources out there. Reach out and ask questions, and every Bitcoiner is more than happy to share what they know.
That's the beauty. Like, I really do feel that the community is super interested in in helping you if you want to go through that journey. It's like, oh, there she goes again. She's gonna talk about Bitcoin. So I mean, so I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to help you download a wallet. I'm happy to show you how it works, understanding what is Lightning, which is how you can pay much faster and cheaper fees, understanding the different wallets and how that works. I have a friend who says, I have more wallets than purses. Right? And that's kind of cool because you're testing, which one, what are the fees, which one is like your own wallet, your own Bitcoin versus a third party, and how the Bitcoin is transferred or not. It really is a journey of knowledge and education, but you first have to just play with it, test it, understand it, and be a part of the new history. I think that's the coolest part. I like being a part of history. So if nothing else, just be part of our history, be part of this history, be part of how money is going to change, whether the world wants it or not. So just be part of history.
Yeah, and being a part of history doesn't mean that you have to have $1 million either. You can play, when you play with a wallet, it can be as little as 25 cents.
That's the other thing that people don't understand, that you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can just buy a fraction, which are called sats, right? Sats. Or Satoshi, who invented Bitcoin.
Thanks for joining us today and learning with us today. If the discussion with our guest resonated with you and you would like to dive deeper into the world of Bitcoin, don't miss out on joining the Orange Hatter Women's Reading Club. The meetup link is in the show notes. Also, if there are women in your life whom you think would both enjoy and benefit from learning more about Bitcoin, please share Orange Hatter with them. Until next time, bye!